proceed?
You may.
Please introduce yourself.
My name is Hayden Durant.
What do you do for a living, Ms. Durant?
Well, I'm the IT director at Midlands Hospital. I'm also a single mother. I have one daughter, Jessie. She's 15.
Can you tell us a little bit about Jessie?
Well, sure. Jessie's about to start at Torrey High School. This past summer, she joined the track team and the chess club, which makes her more involved than I ever was in high school. Jessie and I are very close.
Well, can you tell us a little bit more about your relationship with Jessie?
Well, like I said, Jessie and I are very close. I always say that a girl and her father have a very special relationship, and I think it has been hard growing up for Jessie without a man in my life, without a father figure. But I've tried to be everything I could for my daughter, an example of a career woman and a good mother.
Okay, so let's turn your attention to why we're here today. Do you know Andy and Lee Park?
I do. Andy and Lee were my neighbors in Fairview. They had a daughter, Sydney, who was just about Jessie's age. From the moment the girls met, they became best friends. They were absolutely inseparable. One summer, Andy, Lee, and I had a door installed in the fence in our backyard so that the girls could run back and forth with each other without having to go on the street. They were always together.
So what kind of things did Jessie and Sydney do when they were together?
Well, they loved playing outside. They played cops and robbers, hide and go seek. They played on the jungle gym in our backyard. And as they got older, they were always at my house or Andy and Lee's playing video games.
What kinds of things was Jessie interested in specifically?
Well, Jessie's a tomboy, just like I was when I was her age. So, like I said, now she's into chess and running. But I guess about 5 years ago, she was really into being outside. And Jessie, from an early age, just loved the military. She loved everything about it. She loved the uniforms, and she was always watching the History Channel and reading stuff about World War II.
Or was Jessie interested in guns specifically?
No, she just loved the military. She loved everything about it. I don't know why she thought it was so interesting.
Now, did Jessie ever ask you about guns?
Yes, she did, on August 17th, 2010.
What happened when she asked you about it?
Well, Jessie came home from the Parks house, and she told me the Parks had a gun in their house. I remembered something that Andy had told me about getting something for protection after their house was broken into, but I just immediately thought of all the times that the girls had been over there playing with a gun in the house. So I sat Jessie down and we had a long talk about gun safety, how you should never touch a gun, and how guns are really, really harmful and are not toys.
And what happened the next day?
Well, it was a normal day. I had to go to work, and I had arranged to have Jessie go over to Andy and Lee's house so she could play with Sydney. So I walked Jessie over, and Danny Brooks, the babysitter, wasn't there. I asked Andy where Danny was, and Andy said Danny had a family emergency, and they would have a neighbor on call. It made me really nervous to think about the girls home alone, especially since I knew there was a loaded gun in the house, but I had to go to work. I'm a single mom, so I'm the only one who supports our family. So I just took Jessie aside. I reminded her about our conversation the night before. I said bye to the girls and I went home.
And once you went to work, what happened?
Well, it was a normal day until around 9:45. I got a call from Jessie on my cell phone. She knows not to call me at work unless it's an emergency. And I could hear from the sound of her voice that something horrible had happened. So I just panicked. I threw my cell phone in my bag and I just left my office. I live about 45 minutes from the hospital where I work, and when I was close to home, I got a call from the Midland State Police saying that there had been an incident at the Parks house. I was just so glad I was already on my way.
So once you got to the Parks house, what did you see?
Well, there were emergency personnel all over the place. I went in the house looking for my daughter, and I saw a body about the size of Jessie's on the ground.
Were you able to find where Jessie was?
Yes. I told the police officer who I was. He led me to a back room. Jessie was sitting at a kitchen table surrounded by police officers. She had her hands in paper bags. I tried to hug her, but they wouldn't let me touch my own daughter. She just looked so scared.
Okay, Ms. Duran, you've been here throughout all of the trial, and you've heard the things that the plaintiff has alleged against you. They've spoken a lot about video games today. What kind of video games did you buy your daughter?
I bought Jessie all kinds of video games. I bought her sports video games, karaoke video games, and military video games.
Okay, so let's talk about those military games specifically. Why weren't you nervous about your daughter playing these games?
Well, since I work in information technology, I had had some exposure to these games. I've played them before. The violence in them isn't anything different than someone could see on the news or network television. When I watch TV at my house with my daughter, I watch with her. And it was the same with these games. I sat with her and talked with her about gun violence and how it's different in real life than it is in games, and how you should never touch guns and they're not toys.
Ms. Duran, the plaintiff is also alleging that negligent parenting on your part could have led to Jessie shooting Sydney. Now, has Jessie ever been violent towards Sydney?
Absolutely not. The girls were best friends.
Before August 18th, 2010, had Jessie ever held a gun before?
Of course not.
Had Jessie ever told you that she wanted to shoot someone?
No.
Ms. Duran, had you ever spoken to Jessie before about gun safety?
Absolutely. Every time I played the military video games with Jessie, we talked about how guns are not toys.
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
Response, counsel?
Yes, Your Honor, this isn't going for the truth of the matter asserted. This is going to the effect on the listener, which would be Jessie in this case.
Your response on those grounds?
Yes, Your Honor. They're trying to show through these statements that Hayden Duran said these things to Jessie. They're using these statements for the truth of the matter asserted. And these statements are hearsay as they are being used for the truth.
One last response, counselor.
Yes, Your Honor, we're not trying to prove that it's true that Hayden in fact said these things. We're trying to prove the effect on Jessie once she heard these things from her mother.
I agree. Your objection's overruled.
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, Ms. Duran, did you ever talk to Jessie about gun safety?
Yes. Like I said, every time we played those video games, I talked to Jessie about how gun violence in real life is different than gun violence in games. How you should never touch guns, they're not toys. And I even talked to her on August 17th, the night before all of this happened.
Thank you, Your Honor. At this time, I have no further questions.
Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Mr. Duran. I want to pick up where you left off on direct examination. You said that when you played these video games with Jessie, you talked to her about the dangers of guns, right?
Yes, every time.
And on direct examination, you also said that playing these video games never concerned you.
No, I mean, I played them before, and I watch the news every day. I mean, I didn't think it was much different.
So Jessie playing these video games never concerned you.
It didn't concern me, especially if I sat with her and talked to her about them. But I would never let her play them unsupervised or without talking to her first.
Permission to approach opposing counsel with what has been marked as plaintiff's exhibit 5.
Granted.
Are you referring to the specific one?
Oh, no.
Okay.
Permission to approach the witness.
You may approach.
You recognize this document, correct, Mrs.
Yes, I do.
This is an email that you wrote on July 1st, 2010.
Yes, to my friend Casey, one of my oldest friends.
This is a fair and accurate copy of that email.
Yes, it is.
And that's your name at the bottom.
Yes,
And your email address in the from column at the top.
yes.
I want to talk about this document for a minute. Because earlier you said that you weren't concerned about Jessie playing video games, right?
Right,
Well, in this document, you talk about how you're worried about Jessie, right?
right.
You were worried that Jessie only wanted to play video games that involved shooting hundreds of people.
I was worried because this was right after we got the new gaming system. Felt like Jessie and Sydney never wanted to go outside. They were always at our house playing video games, but it was just a passing fancy. You know how kids are with new toys.
Mrs. Duran, bring you back to my question. You were concerned that Jessie only wanted to play games that involved shooting hundreds of people.
Like I said, I was worried Jessie and Sydney only wanted to play video games.
You also heard from other parents that Jessie would point sticks at other kids saying, "Bang, you're dead."
Objection, Your Honor, to hearsay as to these words from other parents.
Response, counselor?
Your Honor, I'm not using these statements for the truth of the matter asserted, however, for the effect on this listener. What did she do after she heard these statements from other parents?
Counselor?
Yes, Your Honor, I would disagree with opposing counsel and say that they are using this for the truth of the matter asserted, saying that Jesse did in fact say, bang, bang, I want to shoot you. That's something that they're saying we need to be concerned about. That is the truth of the matter asserted.
One last one.
Your Honor, we are not using this statement to say that Jesse would actually kill these other children. That's not what we're using it for. We're using it to show that in this email she outlined that she was worried because she heard these statements. They're being offered for the effect on this listener after hearing these statements.
Objection overruled.
Yes.
May continue.
Now, other parents told you that Jesse was pointing sticks at other kids saying, bang, you're dead.
Yes, they did.
Permission to approach the witness with plaintiffs 1 or 2.
Permission granted.
Ms. Lorraine, you recognize this picture as well.
Yes, I do.
This is a picture that Jessie drew when she was 10 years old.
Yes,
This is a fair and accurate copy of the picture that you saw.
yes.
Now, in that picture, it also shows Jessie pointing guns at other kids.
Yeah, she's scaring the bad kids away. Jessie also loves superheroes. I forgot to say that.
So that's a yes to my question.
Yes.
I also want to talk about the events that led up to the accident on August 18, 2010. Now, you picked Jessie up from Mrs. Park's home that day, right?
Yes, Jessie came home.
Jessie told you that there was a gun in Miss Park's home.
Yes, she did.
She told you she wanted to play with that gun.
Yes.
She told you she wanted to hold it.
Yes, she did.
She
And
told
I
you-
sat Jessie down and we talked about it, how you should never play with guns.
She told you she wanted to know what a real gun felt like.
She did say that.
The next day, you allowed Jessie to go over to the Park's home.
I didn't really have another choice.
So that's a yes.
Yes,
Now, you knew there wasn't a gun in your home, right?
right. I would never keep a gun in my house.
On direct examination, you said you were concerned about the kids because they played in a house where a gun was. That's what you said?
Yes, I was just shocked that Andy and Lee hadn't thought about leaving the kids alone in a house where there was a gun.
You live right next door, right?
Yes.
But you didn't allow the children to be at your home where there wasn't a gun, right?
Well, I was at work. I mean, they usually had Danny Brooks. That was why Jessie went over so much.
Well,
I-
Danny Brooks wouldn't be there on August 18th.
Well, I didn't know that until I brought Jessie over.
Well, when you found out that they didn't have a babysitter, you didn't allow the children to play in your home, right?
Well, I didn't have the arrangement. They said they'd have a neighbor on call, and I didn't make the same arrangements at my house.
So you allowed your daughter to go over to the Park's home
Yes,
with a gun,
yes,
knowing that there would be no adult watching them at all times.
yes.
No further questions.
Any redirect based on that?
No, Your Honor, I just asked that Mr. Young be excused.
Mr. Rand? You are excused. Vince, would you like to call your next witness?
Yes, Your Honor, the defense would like to call Dr. Ashford Rosa to the stand.
Doctor, you're aware that you already been sworn in? I am aware.
This is,
Yes.
may I proceed, Your Honor?
Yes, ma'am.
Please state your name for the court.
My name is Ashton Rosa.
And what do you do for a living?
I'm a professor of health policy and management at Midland State University, and also for the past 10 years I've served as co-director on the Midland Center for Responsible Gun Policy and Legislation.
What kind of work do you do as a professor?
Well, I teach a combination of graduate and undergraduate courses, mainly on violence prevention. I also conduct research. I've conducted studies for the past 21 years related to gun violence.
What does your research focus on?
My research focuses specifically on gun violence in the home, so I study things like gun purchasing patterns, the effects of storing a firearm in the home, as well as proper gun storage techniques.
Where did you go to school?
I earned my master's in public health from Tufts University. Then I went on to earn my PhD in health policy and management from Midland State University.
And what did your graduate training involve?
Advanced courses on epidemiology, statistical analysis, as well as research methods.
Dr. DeRosa, how are you involved in the case today?
I was hired to offer my expertise and evaluate whether or not Andy and Lee Park safely stored their firearm.
And what did you review to prepare for your testimony?
I wrote the affidavits of Andy Park, Hayden Duran, and Danny Brooks, and I used all that information along with the experience and education that I have in my field.
Is that type of evaluation standard when looking at cases involving gun safety?
Absolutely, it's what I've done in every case so far.
What did you conclude about the way the Parks handled their gun?
The Parks did not adequately store their guns safely. In fact, they violated all 4 guidelines of SAFE.
And what is safe?
SAFE is an acronym that I use, and it provides the guidelines of proper gun storage protocols. I actually brought a visual aid to help explain those protocols.
Permission for the witness to step down and make use of the demonstrative aid?
You certainly may.
You're very welcome.
Please. Can I read?
I agree.
Dr. DeRosa, could you please explain the first guideline?
Absolutely. The first one is safe, or excuse me, sequence. And that I'm referring to the combination on the safe. And normally a safe is only as strong as the combination that is used. A weak combination will lead to a weak safe.
How did you feel the Parks violated this guideline?
The Parks actually wrote their combination on a sheet of paper and left it accessible in a file cabinet that was unlocked. Additionally, the combination itself was a very weak combination. It was simply a combination of their birthdays, which is easily guessable for anyone.
Could you please explain the second guideline?
Right, ammunition is the next one, and by that I mean where the ammunition is stored. I think we can all agree that guns without bullets cannot shoot, so the storage of the ammunition is almost as important as the storage of the gun itself. So it should be stored in a separate location that is equally as inaccessible as the gun.
How do you feel the Parks violated this guideline?
Well, there is some dispute as to where the ammunition was stored. However, in any case, the ammunition was used and it was loaded by the girls, and it was used and it led to the death of Sydney Park.
Could you explain the third guideline?
Right, familiarity. I believe that everyone in the home that has a gun should be very familiar with proper gun storage techniques and how to handle a gun safely.
And how do you feel the Parks violated this guideline?
From all of my research, I never gathered any evidence that the Parks had a discussion with Sydney Park about those policies.
Could you explain the last guideline?
Right, environment. And by that, I mean where you keep the safe itself. Just as another layer of defense, it should be used, or it should be stored in a location that is inaccessible to passersby.
Could you please elaborate on how you feel the Parks violated this guideline?
Right, it was kept in their bedroom, which it was not an appropriate location, because the bedroom door was unlocked and it was accessible for Sydney Park and Jesse Duran.
Thank you, Dr. DeRosa. You may step down. Oh, back to this. Dr. DeRosa, how common are accidents involving firearms?
Unfortunately, much more common than they should be. In fact, half of all gun owners who have owned the firearm for over a year have unintentionally fired that firearm on at least one occasion.
And what causes these accidents involving children?
With children, they typically like to show off the gun and to their classmates or peers, and so they'll be handling it and playing with it, and the trigger could accidentally be compressed, or they could drop the gun, causing a discharge of the firearm.
What is your ultimate conclusion in today's case?
I believe that the Parks did not adequately store their firearm, and that if they would have fired or followed my 4 guidelines of SAFE, that we probably would not be in court here today.
Thank you, Your Honor. At this time, I have no further questions.
Any cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor.
Counselor, would you like the demonstrative left constructed or
I'd
deconstructed?
like it to be deconstructed, actually.
Please.
Will Rogers for the plaintiff and inquire.
Yes, you may.
Good afternoon.
Hi, how are you?
Mr. DeRosa, you'd agree that the parks took the right precautions tried to take the right precautions when storing their firearm.
No, I would not agree with that.
They didn't try to take the right precautions when trying to store the firearm?
No, I believe that they didn't follow my 4 guidelines of safe.
They didn't do anything that was positive in storing their firearm?
Oh no, they definitely did a few positive things. They purchased a Gallucci safe. However, when they created a combination that was easily guessable and they wrote that combination down, it rendered the safe essentially useless.
The parks bought their firearm from A.D. Baker and Company,
Right, it was a 6-shot revolver. It's a
And-
very reliable firearm.
and A.D. Baker and Company, they're reputable for having safe firearms.
Absolutely.
Now, about the safe. The parks bought the safe from Gallucci,
Right.
which is known for being the toughest in the country.
Yes, as I recently said, the Gallucci safe was a commendable purchase. However, when they had a weak combination, the safe was useless.
So as an expert, you don't think it was unreasonable to purchase this safe and try to properly store their firearms?
No, I simply think it was unreasonable to have a weak combination.
And you have no evidence that the parks revealed the combination to Sydney?
From what I gathered, no. However, it was simply a combination of their birthdays, so it was easily guessable for Sydney or anyone else for that matter.
No further questions.
Any redirect based on that?
No, Your Honor, but I do ask that my witness be the officer.
Dr. DeRosa, you are excused. Defense, you may call your final witness.
The defense calls Haley Duran, or Jesse Duran, sorry.
Ms. Durant, you're aware that you've been sworn in already?
Yes, Your Honor.
May I proceed?
Yes.
Please state your name for the record.
Jesse Duran.
How old are you?
I'm 15.
Jesse, please tell the court where you live.
25 Maple Street, Fairview, Midlands.
All right, Jesse, now I want to talk to you about why you're here today. Did you know Sydney Park?
Yes, of course. Sydney was one of my best friends. We were always together. We hung out all the time. We were in a lot of the same classes, and she ended up moving into our neighborhood when we were 5. So after that, we were always at each other's houses, running back and forth.
And how did you first meet Sydney?
I first met her when we were in class one day. I brought a cape into school, black cape. I was really into Batman at the time, and I guess Sydney was too, because she loved it, and I told her she could have it. But then her mom called later that day and just asked to see if it was all right that I'd given it away to her. And after that, our parents got to talking, and we hung out more.
Jesse, now you previously mentioned that you would go over to Sydney's house and Sydney would come over to your house. What did you and Sydney do at her house?
Everything. When we were lazy, we were hanging out on the couch watching TV or playing video games together. But we loved to be outside too. We loved to run around, play cops and robbers and tag and stuff like that.
And what kind of video games would you guys play?
We liked all types. Some of our favorites were Normandy, which was just a war game, and another was Last Man Standing, which was one where we were in a maze, and then the last one left, won.
Just to be clear, you and Sydney played these games together?
Yes, we always played together. It's one of our favorite things to do.
All right, Jesse, now I want to talk to you about August 18th, 2010. How did that morning begin for you?
That morning, it was summertime, and I woke up a little earlier than I normally do. It was about 7, and I texted Sydney to see if she was up yet, because I wanted to come over. But she was saying, or she wasn't up yet, and so I waited.
Did you get to go over to the Parks' home that morning?
Yes, I ended up going over around 9, Sydney still wasn't up, and I jumped in her bed to wake her up, and we hung out for a while, and her parents left a little bit after that.
And when Sydney Parks' parents left, who was at the house with you and Jesse?
No one was at the house, we were home alone.
All right, Jesse, now you previously mentioned that you went over to Sydney's house and her parents left. What did you guys do when the Parks left?
Played for a while, but we got kind of bored with it, and it's when Sydney and I decided to go looking for the combination for the gun safe.
Did you know about this gun before August 18th?
Well, I found out the day before. Sydney told me that her parents had gotten the gun to keep them safe, and we wanted to go see what it was and look at it.
And when you got the combination, what happened next?
That's when Sydney said it was in her parents' bedroom, so we went in there and Sydney read off and I punched in the numbers and we opened up the safe together.
What, if anything, did you find upon opening up the safe?
Inside the safe was a revolver and a box of bullets.
All right, Jesse, and after you saw that gun and those bullets inside that safe, what did you do next?
Well, we took it out and we opened it up with a spinning thing and put a bullet in and we started playing with it.
When you loaded the gun, what happened?
We wanted to pose with it like in our games together. So Sydney had it first and she pointed at a wall and yelled bang. And then I took it and pointed at a mirror, but then we stopped playing when Sydney pointed at me.
Why did you guys stop playing?
The gun was still loaded. It made me really nervous that Sydney was pointing it at me. So I just told her that it wasn't funny, and we went to the living room just to watch TV instead.
Jesse, now when you went to the living room, what happened?
We were watching some show. I can't even remember what it was, but I wasn't really interested. And I noticed that Sydney brought the gun, and it was still making me nervous that we had it with us. So I asked her for it.
And when you asked Sydney for this gun, did she give it to you?
Yeah, she threw it at me. I tried to catch it. And the next thing I knew, it was just going off. And Sydney just fell to the ground. And she was bleeding. She wasn't answering me. She wasn't moving. She was freaking out. I didn't know what to do.
Jesse, do you remember anything else that happened that day?
All I remember is trying to decide what to do and calling my mom. Told her that Sydney was hurt. She needed to come home. And for that, all I remember is just everyone coming around, a bunch of people coming in.
Thank you. No further questions, General Tinker.
Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor.
No, Jesse, I want to begin right where you left off on August 18, 2007, okay?
Okay.
Can you need a moment, just let me know, okay?
Thank you.
Now, that day, you said that you and Sydney, you guys went and you guys got the gun together, is that right?
Excuse me?
You got the gun with Sydney.
Yes, we found a combination and opened it up together.
And you were the one who loaded the gun, isn't that right?
Pardon?
You were the one who loaded the gun, you put the bullet
Yeah,
in
we
there?
opened it together and then put it in.
So you were the one who put the bullet inside the gun, isn't that right?
Yeah, we were working together for this.
And now, and Jesse, you love guns, isn't that right?
Of course, I was really into Batman and military stuff. It was just some of the things I was interested in.
You have a document actually there in front of you, Plaintiff's 3, I believe, yes. Yes, are you familiar with that document?
Of course, This was something that I made in school one day for a school project.
And on this document, you entitled it "Me and My Gun," isn't that right?
Yes,
And it's a picture of you and you're holding your gun up and you're playing video games with your gun, right?
yes,
And you're hunting with a gun.
yes.
You're pointing at children with this gun.
Yeah, I was really into Batman and stuff like that at the time, and I wanted to be a superhero and protect everyone.
And the last one says, "I heart my gun," right?
Yes, of course.
Now, you actually showed your parent, Hayden Durant, this picture, isn't that right?
Yes,
And so when Hayden Durant saw this picture, she didn't punish you in any type of way, did she?
no,
She didn't sit you down right there and then and express to you how dangerous guns are, did she?
no, just
At-
trouble.
At that point, when she saw this picture of you playing with a gun, she actually hung it up on the refrigerator, isn't that right?
Yeah, it was a school drawing I did.
Now, Jesse, I want to move on to the video games that you were allowed to play.
Okay,
Now, the video games, they were very violent, isn't that right?
they were just our military games and things like that.
They weren't always military games. In these games, you were required to kill people, isn't that right?
I mean, some of them, yeah.
In the games, their sole purpose was to kill as many people as possible, isn't that right?
I mean, yeah, some of the games were just like that.
In fact, your favorite game was a game where the winner was the one who shot as many people as possible.
The game, one of my favorites was Last Man Standing, which was when you got enemies, and then, yeah, you played till the end.
And it was Hayden Durant who brought you this game, correct?
Yeah, got one of my games really good.
Now, Jesse, I want to talk about the ratings on these games. These games were rated for people that were 17 and older, correct?
Yes,
And at the time, you were only 10.
yeah, my mom made me wait until I was 10 to look at anything like that. She wouldn't let me play them before. I kept begging her, but she said it wasn't okay. And then finally she let me, and we sat down and she played the games with me.
Now, Sydney, I'm sorry, no, Jesse, I want to move on to August 17, 2010, okay? And that was the day that you found out that the Parks had a gun in their home, isn't that right?
Yes, it is.
Now, when you found out that there was a gun in their home, you actually told your mom this.
Yeah, I told my mom.
You told your mom that you knew that the Parks had a gun in their home, correct?
I did. And she told me that I shouldn't be going near it because guns weren't toys and it could just ruin people's lives. That I shouldn't be going near.
Jesse, redirecting you back to my question, that was a yes. Was that a yes?
Yes,
Now, you actually told your mom that you wanted to see this gun, you wanted to play with it, isn't that right?
yes, and she told me not
And
to touch the gun.
And the very next day, she still sent you over to the Parks home, knowing that there was a gun there, right?
I wanted to go over to Sydney's house and play with her, and
She sent you over there with and there was no supervision over at that house that day, correct?
yeah, I ran over and nobody was there to watch us.
Thank you. At this time, I have no further questions.
Any redirect based on that?
None, Your Honor.
Then the witness, maybe, please.
And,
Defense counsel?
The defense rests its case in chief at this time, and we're ready whenever opposing counsel is.
Yes, for a brief 5 to 10 minute recess before we begin closing arguments.
Let's do 5 minutes, so back at 3:25.